Now, we wanted to get you up for a chat because the women's season's finished. The WNCL season's finished for the year. From the 12 games, 5 wins, 7 losses, finishing 4th. So how do we assess the season? Sort of mid-table, but I know there's a lot of positives to come out of the season individually, but how do you assess the overall year?
Yeah, 5.5 wins, I'll claim.
Oh,
we had a little
yes.
tie over there early in the year.
Yes,
Grand
that's
final
true.
weekend. We played in the dark, in
That's
the rain.
right,
In Adelaide.
that's right.
It was a fascinating game, and it was we got the tie. So, yeah, look, I think, as any professional outfit or any sports team for that matter, you go out there to win, and our players go out there to compete hard and win. And I suppose to finish 4th is not exactly where you want to be. You want to be contending for titles, at least be in the mix for it. There's no secret in that, and I don't think that would come as a surprise to anyone. But certainly from last season, we would feel it's a massive improvement. We feel there's a lot of areas of the team's game and individuals that have improved dramatically over the last 12 months, which naturally occurs with time and effort and energy. But I suppose for us to finish 4th, last year we finished 6th. We feel like it's the right trajectory for our team. We've got a lot of young players. We've got some terrific top-end talent. We've got a high amount of Cricket Australia contracted players, but we've also got a lot of young talent. We feel like exposing them to game time this year it has been a win. And then in terms of the win-loss ratio, we felt like we probably, we had a loss and a tie in Adelaide, and if you start your season off with 3 out of 4, who knows where it goes. And then we beat New South Wales twice, so coulda, woulda, shoulda. But we're certainly pretty pleased with a lot of the stuff we saw this year.
There's quite a lot of similarities between the men and the women in the sense that there's a lot of youngsters coming through in the men's game because they're getting opportunities because of the national selection with Hanscom at the moment, Murphy, Boland, etc. Bit the same with the women, that with the girls over with firstly the Australian summer, but then also the World Cup, that you've been able to blood a lot of the youngsters that are coming through and not just giving them games, but giving them significant opportunity. Yeah,
absolutely. Look, when we have our top players, we're a very formidable side, and you saw that against New South Wales when Meg came back and Elise and Annabelle was playing in those games as well. We still have a couple out injured. So I think when you have them all, it's a completely different kettle of fish. And I think it does create opportunity, which is the exciting bit. You got your hands forced, and you do need to bring in other players. I would say the young players we brought in, we feel like they're some of the better talents and have performed as well at Premier level or at youth championships. It's not just a case of being young. I think, as it turns out, a lot of the more talented players in some respects are those younger players on our contract list in particular, and a lot coming through. But there's also, there's plenty of depth in Premier cricket as well that we've seen build over the last few years also. We've actually got some games coming up in March, some Premier All-Star games where we'll get a look at a wider range of players. We've always got an eye to the future in that regard, but certainly being able to expose those younger players, as I said before, to pressure situations in games at the highest level domestically, we feel it'll hold them in good stead. So the likes of Liv Henry, Ella Haywood batting up the order, Tess Flintoff has been around a little bit longer but still only young, playing a key role in the team. Sophie Day had a breakout year, one of the leading wicket takers in the league. So Reece McKenna, captain Australia at the Under-19 World Cup. And then I suppose if you look at initial point around the Australian players, we've got 5 players at the T20 World Cup at the moment, including Kim Garth, who's debuted for Australia. So again, a different journey for an older player to come across the world and play for another country after playing 100 games for Ireland. So we're really pleased with the opportunities that those players have got, and Tess Flintoff playing Australia A, and Nicole Fulton playing at the Governor General's game in January as well. So that individual, I suppose, promotion of players is a big part of what we're about, along with the team success in the long term.
Just even you just talking then, it makes your job very difficult. Well, not very difficult, very challenging when you've got so many different boxes you're trying to tick from a development point of view, opportunity point of view. Then you've got the superstars at the top, and then still trying to win. It's a real juggle as a coach when you've got such a young group, particularly.
Yeah, it is. And, your side changes from when we pitch them as series. The girls play 2 games in 3 days and we pitch them as a mini series.
Yep.
And, from series to series this year, our team's changed all the time. And we had a new captain in Sophie Molyneux at the start of the year, and then unfortunately she goes down with a major injury. Nicole Fulton steps up, who did the role a little bit last year. So there's a lot of change in terms of the leadership, and then also just the playing 11. I mean, we went to Brisbane with a whole range of non-contracted players. We debuted 4 players up there. I mean, we basically had 11 or 12 players unavailable for selection. So we don't really like to use that as an excuse for anything, but it's a fact. And as I said before, we try and see it as an opportunity to create those spaces in the team for players to play key roles as well. I think probably when you have your bigger name players, the other players are generally support acts. And I think that's the biggest challenge for the girls or the guys for that matter, is going from being you're batting at number 8 and getting 15 not out, and then all of a sudden you're opening or batting at 3 and expected to make 100. I mean, that doesn't just happen. We'd like to think it does. Yeah. It comes with time and opportunity. So I think that's a big part of what our girls have learned is, okay, I can do it. And also I'm getting the chance to do it against the best players in the country, and that's what's exciting.
One of my favourite players is Nicole Fulton. With what she's been able to do over the last 2 years, you talked about the captaincy. It was sort of thrust on her last year through circumstances. Again, it happens this year. She's still opening the batting and having the gloves as well. Tell me a little bit more about Nicole, what makes her tick, what makes her be able to do all these really key responsibilities within the team.
I sat on the bench in Canberra with Nicole after she got out, and it was her last innings for the year, and she was frustrated. She got another start, and she proved that she could get through the power play, and she got out, not long after that. And she was obviously a bit flat, and I just said, you've done so well this year. You don't know how well you've done for a young person. That yes, she's been around the program for a while, so she does have some experience. She's not the new kid on the block, but she's still a young person, and to captain the side, wicket keep. Bat in the middle order, she got 100 at number 4 or 5 against New South Wales, and then to go up and open when we lost our opening options. I just said, don't underestimate how much of a challenge that's been, and I think it is a credit, and I suppose it typifies what she's like as a person. She's a very optimistic person. She's a competitor. She expects a lot of herself, but she's also an energizer bunny. She's great for our group. She lifts the vibe in the rooms and on the field as well, obviously naturally as a wicketkeeper bat.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing for Nicole is we've just seen the growth in her leadership and her captaincy. I think probably last year she would agree a couple of times we're sitting there going, oh, what's going on out here?
Yeah.
The first time she's doing it, and to now where the way she's running the game, particularly in the field, and her discussions with the girls and things, she's come a long way, and that's really pleasing as well. And in the meantime, she's about to still develop her game. I mean, her batting has gone from strength to strength if you look at her performances as well as what you're seeing by eye.
Yeah.
So, we feel like she's a real player of the future for Victoria, and who knows from there.
Yeah, so that's that from that side of things. And then when we look at Meg, who came back into the system this year at some point, which was great, and then Elise, 2 of the biggest names in world cricket that you've got here in Victoria. When they're not playing, my understanding is they still have a pretty positive influence on the group. They're still really keen to see how everyone's going and still have a role. Tell us about what they can do, even when they're not actually playing, to help Victorian cricket be as strong as it is.
Yeah, it's massive. They're unbelievable, those 2, in their own ways, in their leadership, and particularly things you probably don't see with individual girls and small groups of girls. I guarantee you, if Pez puts a message up on the group, she gets a hell of a lot more likes than I do on the WhatsApp group. I get donuts, which is fair enough. I've got the tumbleweed emoji ready to go. I'll pull the trigger one day, but it shows how revered she is and how respected in our group. And I mean, she's chiming in from South Africa saying good luck for the game, and she comes again after you've lost, and it's a real boost for the girls. I mean, it is even for as a coach. I love seeing that, and she's certainly, while they've been at the T20 World Cup, following us closely, as have all the girls, and they all chime in at different stages in support, and we're probably trying to build that. If you call it a culture or an environment, which is it's a new squad from where we've lost a lot of players from the last 3 to 5 years in Victoria. Some senior players have moved on and retired or gone elsewhere, so it's a new squad, and it's really important that those senior players play that role. I think the individual conversations they have, they don't force themselves, Meg and Pez on the girls, but they're there, they're an ear to listen. They certainly have great advice for the girls, as well as just being around training. So their training standards, the way they train for the young bowlers to bowl to them, the young batters to see how they go about it. Possibly we could do it a little bit more, but we do try to engage them with small groups and we have done in the pre-season when they're around to try and maximise them without farming them and making it too much of a burden. And they're just so important, as are, all the girls that, Georgia Wareham in her own way, Taylor Vlamanic's been in that setup coming back from injury, Sophie Molyneux, I mean, she's just so highly regarded. She's our new captain, and we've kept her engaged this year as well from a leadership and mentor perspective.
How's she going, Soph?
Yeah, she's going okay. She's in there in the gym doing her rehab, and she's really optimistic about getting herself back right to play. It's obviously a very long grind for her with the injury, and we really feel for her. But by the same token, we've been able to, particularly with the spinners and the group as a whole, but she's been terrific with our spinners, who we feel have had a pretty good season, our 3 main spinners, and she's worked closely with them throughout the back end of the year in particular. She's going well. It's tough, and there'll be tough moments for her in the months ahead, but hopefully she can get herself back up and going and play some good cricket. She's got plenty of time ahead in terms of her age and stage of her career, and she's got so much to offer. So she's a terrific person. She's great around our group, and we look forward to certainly getting her back on deck.
So just wrapping things up, and it's not just from talking to you, there is a sense around here that it's an exciting time for the women's program for most of the reasons you've mentioned, but just it seems a really, trying to think of the right word, a receptive group and an exciting group for what's to come, not just now, but for the future, that they can kind of see it. Is that a fair observation?
I think so. I think still for the girls, the challenge is having that self-belief.
Which can be hard, particularly through the WBBL as well.
Absolutely.
The program when you're young and not winning as much as you'd like to.
100%. And I think we're starting to see it. And the more they play, the more exposure to professional cricket and playing against good opposition, you'll start to see them grow in confidence. Like it's such a confidence game, right? Cricket and a belief game, and it's a hard game, and that's what we're saying to them a lot. And so it has its challenges, of course, for all of us, the players, the staff. But we feel like we've just seen such great improvement this year. I mean, there's been so many personal milestones from a performance point of view from a lot of players. I mean, a whole range of players either debuting, making their highest score, taking the most wickets. So it's not just sort of talent and saying they look like a nice player. We're actually starting to see the performances. And that, I think, when you're a player, that gives you the belief and amongst your teammates and you to be able to then go forward with that. And that, I suppose that's probably the biggest thing for me, regardless of your age and stage. If you can develop that as quickly as you can, it holds you in good stead for the future. So, we're certainly, it was a good way it was better to finish with a win than a loss. So hopefully we can take that forward into the pre-season and next year and grow again.
Jarrad, it's great to have you on the podcast. We've waited a while through this summer, but we've finally been able to grab you. Thanks for giving us an insight, and congratulations on the work you're doing. As I said, there's so much excitement around the women's game at the moment, and you're the coach, so you've got to take at least some of the responsibility for that. Well done.
Thank you very much, Whitey. I've got to say it's not just me. We've got a terrific staff at Victoria, and they do a power of work, so I should give them a mention, and they're deserved of a break shortly because they work their backsides off, and I know the girls really respect the work they do, and we owe a lot to our support staff and the setup we've got. So thanks for having me on and the opportunity to chat.
Fantastic. Jarrad Loughman joining us, the coach of the Victorian women's team. Don't go anywhere. Next, a really good chat coming up. I think it's going to be anyway. Matthew Innes is going to join us, former Victorian left-arm fast bowler. Don't go anywhere.